Steph, come on in. We just lost Kelly Malcolm, but you know what? We should touch on Olympus. And seeing as you're a critical member of the Olympus Golden Planet team, it'd be nice to have you sit in with us, and so everybody get to meet Stefan, the man behind the curtain, and we're going to talk Olympus a little bit.
All right.
So Golden Planet. So it's been an exciting year. I mean, we've had some users and some some EarthLabs shareholders interested in where we're going and what we've done, and get a bit of an update on the planet. So let's talk about a couple of the projects. So we recently let Mammoth go.
Yeah.
What else did we let go?
Well, Mammoth, we basically, it came to the point where we drilled it. We found some gold at depth, which is wonderful, but it was 400 meters down and under the base, and it didn't really make sense to continue that any further. So decided that project wasn't really worth spending $2 million to.
Not in this tech market.
No, definitely not to keep it going. And then right now we still hold the other 3 projects. They're in good standing. But the Olympus project has really come up as our flagship. It's the one that's showing the biggest potential, the most awesome results, and definitely the clearest path forward.
Yeah, so some interesting stuff on this project vis-a-vis Genesis, and this is where Kelly Malcolm, who just left, comes into the fold a bit, is that there was a geologist by the name of Blake, a young guy, and there were basically university students, and they reached out to Goldspot looking for jobs actually at the time. And they had this project that they put together, and they were interested in Northwest Territories, and they'd staked it themselves, and I don't think they had done they'd done a little bit of work on it.
They'd done
data compilation,
some rock kicking. They did 2 seasons, I think, up there at the time, but
it's pretty
nothing. It was they flew up and then walked around.
Yeah,
so they weren't getting a lot done,
and they did it all off of government funding. Basically, it was all they didn't pay out of their pockets for this. Anyway, so we picked it up off of them, and then we took it to a far bigger and better place. I mean, we went out, we tripled up the land package. We staked a lot more ground.
We doubled it for sure. I'd have to look to see exactly. I think we went from 121 to over 200 for the land package, which it's still old school. You got to fly around, punch stakes in, and so you're spending a fair amount of money doing that. And we got a camp up there last year, so we have all our permits in place. Did a big archaeological impact assessment with the First Nations group up there. So we had 3 days with an archaeologist and a First Nations leader that basically we walked around to all these different sites. So all our drill sites are now cleared. Camp location is cleared for next year. And we
had a nice little camp last summer too.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. I got to go up there for 10 days or so, and you guys were talking about the never-ending sun. We were in these bright yellow pop-up tents, basically the weather havens. And so the sun all night long is basically beaming into this yellow tent, and the whole thing is glowing. So it was like sun on top of sun, absolutely, mind-numbing. I had the blackout, lens or whatever, but it was crazy.
Well, for some context, so when we first got this project, it's got all these sort of wormy iron formations, sort of all kind of spaghettied all over the place on the project, and then we did some geophysics work, and we looked at the mag work, and we're like, well, there's tons more of this stuff. Yeah. But when we did our first reconnaissance program, boots on the ground prior to that season, we went there and sampled the crap out of these things. And it was crazy. The numbers we got back was 60 grams, 200 grams, 30 grams, 60 grams.
And it was the extent of it, though. It wasn't necessarily just the grade. That's awesome. But it was everywhere. It was everywhere. 70% of our samples came back, 2 grams plus. So there was just basically you're
hundreds.
Oh, that's iron formation. Let's kick it open. Let's see what's in there. And there was definitely something positive. So
yeah. So last year, we doubled that up, or close to doubled up our land package, I guess. And then we went out and did a ton of reconnaissance even on that stuff.
Yeah.
And again,
same
thing, crazy amount of numbers.
Further, wider, that we were going, okay, this is mineralized up to this point in time, or this space, sorry. And so we were able to take it wider. We were able to take it north-south more. So basically expanding the mineralized footprint that we see there, wider and wider and longer. And, to get a better understanding, because what we were really doing with that field program was making sure, where are we going to be taking the water from for these drill sites, and like what's that going to look like? Because in the north, you're faced with challenges, like you were talking about with Sabina, and so mitigating those challenges by doing proper planning ahead of time and planning these things out, like we have to fly everything in. And so basically looking at, okay, winter drill program, what's that going to look like? How big's the runway? What's the biggest plane that we can get up there? So you're maximizing how much, materials you can draw in with the minimum cost. And so we're trying to do all these things ahead of time so that we're just lining our ducks in a row, that as soon as we're clear to get in there, then we can run with it.
Yeah. What's cool about the company is that we had all these projects, right? Whether it be the stuff in Newfoundland, whether it be the stuff in Saskatchewan or the stuff in BC, the Rider project, and then this Olympus project, and we sort of had all of these things moving, and we were spending reasonable amounts of money on all of them. And this one became the shining star. It's to a point now where it just doesn't make sense spending any money on anything else, really, with the types of results we're getting out of Olympus. Stacey Jones, who you work very closely with, and Stacey's our head geologist with Golden Planet and chief geologist there, and she's done an incredible job. And she was she joined us. I believe last year, a year and a
half ago now.
Yeah, a year and a bit ago. And just an awesome person. And it's too bad we couldn't have Stacey with us here today. But, one of the interesting things with Stacey is that she worked on the Sabina project. And for everyone's knowledge out there, we keep bringing up Sabina. We've heard it a couple times today. And basically Goose Bay, right, is the name of the project. It's a complete analog to what we're seeing right now at Olympus, geologically speaking, from a grade perspective. Like the overall footprint of it, the types of mineralization that we are seeing, and the dispersion on that mineralization. I mean, clearly Olympus doesn't have the drilling, but we have channeling on surface. We have, grabs galore. We have evidence all day long on this system. The challenge, I think, and CJ, you can maybe even comment on this, is that, there's a market for everything. And, I think with Olympus, what we're seeing is we're sort of waiting for the right time when you can actually go public with a Northwest Territories first play.
I guess it's a positive that right now it's tucked into a private company. And while we still own a big chunk of it and we still have to communicate what's going on with Golden Planet, I think we're fortunate that it is in a private company where we can wait for the perfect window and, negate all of the negatives that we spoke about earlier with Kelly, whether it be avoiding dilution when you don't have to. Kelly mentioned that he loved what Sabina had, but it had a whole bunch of hair. Now we can go in there and address all the hair and make sure that all of our ducks are lined up before we go in there and make a go out of it. And
we have a beautiful comp in the market where this thing is sold.
Like comp in the market, and going back to the cash in the treasury, enough to do a lot of damage.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that we still have close to $7 million in the bank, and like that's a lot of drill holes even in the north. So, the thing is right now when you're putting out drill results, a lot of times the market's not taking note. Like obviously Newfound's a very different beast. But like if you look across the board, there's a lot of other companies that put out some pretty good results and nothing happens because there just wasn't enough traction, and you can feel that change, and it's definitely coming. And so we think we're going to be timed perfectly that we have like the best financial situation for the company and for our investors. And then at the same time, being able to hit the ground running, whether, it's an RTO or an IPO or whatever it may be of our vehicle to get to market, it's going to come at some point in time. We just don't know when that is. We just want it to be the best situation for all of our investors involved. But we have the cash and we have the project. It's just a matter of timing at this point.
Yeah, and it's nice to, like, if we can time that all right and we end up with the right market whereby it makes sense to have a Northwest Territories forward project, and with the challengings of seasonality and drilling and all that, and the costs affiliated with drilling are quite substantial when you're dealing with the fly in, fly out kind of camp in a remote area like that. But nonetheless, if we can kind of time this all right, it's a big money project. It's a huge land package, and it's a district, play. It's got fantastic numbers everywhere, which is all one could ever hope for. So really now it's just like when we go at this, we want to make sure we have a critical mass of dollars to really go at it properly and give it that go.
Well, and that's exactly what you were talking about, right? Like, so we can take that money and we can work up the other projects, which the results aren't going to be as good as Olympus. We know that already from what we've seen on those other guys.
Yep.
Again, there's sniffs of things and there's some smoke there, and they're exciting and interesting. There's no doubt about that. But it's like, in this market, do you want something that's that green fields and that raw, or do you want to go something where you can go, okay, the likelihood of me hitting something with a drill on when you have gold at surface across the entire project, it's pretty easy to make that decision.
It's 100%.
So why would you waste money working up the other ones, doing more work across the board to then go, okay, well, these just aren't quite there, and or you get really lucky, sure, but what are the odds of
it's
that,
sort of
that we
being
know?
they're being eclipsed by
by
Olympus and its you know, and its significance and the types of values we're seeing. And so that's the game of the game, you know. Not every property doesn't have to work out, and sometimes when you have 4 projects, one of them, and it wasn't the one we would have on paper thought would be the shining star, but it just happens to be a profound shining star. I wish it was in Ontario. I wish it was in. It could switch locations with any of the aforementioned projects.
Yeah, exactly.
And that'd be the best scenario. But nonetheless, we have a fantastic district play. You've got a direct analog to Sabina Gold and Silver's asset that they just sold, the Goose Bay that they sold to B2 Gold for $1 billion. And, you know, like, what more can you ask for? So, you know, it'll be exciting to get back out there. It'll be exciting to kickstart that program. And the next step for that really is drilling. I hate to say it. There's, you know, we've sampled it we're blue in the face, and we've got numbers on everything. So, and there's a ton of outcrop too. Right.
That's the beauty thing about working up there is the tundra's relatively clear of, you know, like there's some grasslands and some marshes. There was actually more marshes there than I expected. I thought it'd be a lot drier, but, you know, given the climate, apparently that's normal. And so, you know, rocks just popping out of the ground everywhere. And so you can find it. And it's funny because with the freeze thaw, sometimes you'll get a different outcrop up here, you know, 2 years later. So there was some stuff there that we didn't see the year before that had all of a sudden heaved up that you're like, oh, wait, what's this? You know, there was like frost bubbles and things like that you get to look at. So yeah, no, it's exciting.
It's cool. And then you guys had a pretty grisly encounter, we'll say.
Yeah, that was crazy. Northwest Territories is obviously, it's Grizzly County, and it goes basically all across the north and down the coast. That's where grizzlies are going to be present. And so we were about, you know, 7 days in, and I'll back up a little bit. The first day, it was all bear training and making sure everyone was bear aware of, you know, what do you do with your bangers, and where's your bear spray, and what does it look like? No bangers in the helicopter, you know, all that stuff. And so we fired everything off, and we're comfortable, you know, doing those things. And so sure enough, day 5, 6, 7, I can't remember, we're flying back from across the lake. So Point Lake, this beautiful, gorgeous lake, you know, one of the most relaxing places I've been. And we're flying back and, you know, looking forward to the evening, going for a dip in the 10-degree water. And we're about to land, and we see the helicopter engineer walking towards us, and he's got the shotgun, you know, prepped and ready to go, like fingers right beside the trigger. And I was like, what the hell is happening? And like, I see the look in his eyes, and it was just pure terrified. And I was like, okay. I'm like, what's happening here? Something's wrong. I immediately grabbed the banger out of my pocket, make sure my bear spray's ready to go. And I was like, you okay? I was like, this guy's either lost it or a bear came through camp. And so luckily it was the bear. So he was sitting in his tent, and he was, you know, watching a movie or working on his laptop or something.
Yeah. He's watching that Leonardo DiCaprio movie with the bear. He's like, getting ready for it.
So he, you know, he's working away or doing whatever. Looks to the left, and there's a grizzly 5 feet outside of his tent, looking inside his tent.
Yeah.
And so we have bear fence around the entire property.
It was off though.
It was off during the day, which is a lot of times the case, which it wasn't going forward. Yeah. But the bear had walked through the gate, had basically gone over and checked him out. And the crazy thing is we had a stove up there. And so the engineer had just gone into the kitchen and put food in the stove and came back and then sat down. And within less than 30 seconds, he looked and saw the bear. So the bear followed him to his tent. Yeah. The crazy thing is that 20 feet over in his tent was the bear spray. And then behind the bear in another tent was where the gun was. And so he just stood there and just didn't move. Eventually the bear walks away, And he like waited like, I don't know, 2-3 minutes until he was like, okay, the bear's gone. Grabbed his bear spray.
I would have shit my pants.
Oh man, I can't even. I saw how shook he was. Like he might have shit his pants. And so finally he goes, gets the gun, and that was when the helicopter came back, and that's when he walked up and came to see us. And so we walk into the tent. We don't see, or like from above where the helicopter landed, you could see over the camp. There's no sign of the bear, nothing. We see on the one side the bear fence has been walked over, clearly like it's trampled and flat on the ground. And so we fire off a banger on that side, and we just see the bear pop up at the water. It was just sitting there having a drink. Didn't scare it enough to make it run away or anything like that. It was just like, whoop, stood up. I was like, oh shit, like it's right there. Helicopter had left to pick up the other team at that point in time, so we don't have any type of like, we have the gun, but you never want to shoot up there if you can avoid it, obviously. And so the helicopter comes back and sees the four of us standing at the edge of the camp. We're waving. We have the banger. We have the gun sitting there. And so finally he went down and saw the bear, and that was enough to scare it away. And so unfortunately I had to drive the bear away a little bit to keep us safe. But yeah, it could have been way worse. Didn't eat any food.
And you said how crazy it was, like how fast that helicopter to drive that bear.
He was going at normal speed almost. Like the bear, like on ground where I was rolling my ankles regularly and like killing myself just walking over all this tufty earth. And this thing was just flying. Like I would say going like 30 kilometers an hour. Like he was booting it.
Hauling
and
ass.
He basically ran all the way around the lake. Like it was crazy.
Imagine
kilometers.
CJ, you had your little Timberlands on there.
Those blue Timberlands.
No, if I was with Steph, I'd be putting on the runners. I'm like, don't have to outrun a bear, Steph.
You just have to outrun Steph.
Yeah, run Steph.
Yeah, why'd you bring those?
That's insane.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's terrifying. I'm terrified of bears. I like working in the bush. It wasn't a scary thing for me. It's something that's entered into my fears. The older I get, the more uncomfortable I am.
The thing is, like
bears.
The likelihood of a bear attack is so low. And
low.
like
you won't catch me in rural BC by myself in a bush mapping. I just won't do it.
That's fair.
I won't do it.
We wouldn't let you anyways.
No, but I mean, old me, 100%. I've done I've been out in the crap, but I like terrified of that. Wow. Anyway, so I'm glad you guys had the. He's like, there's a bear in the camp. I was like,
it's like it's okay. Like,
everyone's alive. Like everyone's okay. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So anyway, well that's good. So that's our little update, I think, on Golden Planet. It's a super exciting time. Olympus is awesome. Tons of gold. It's just going to be how to time the market and wait for our grand unveiling of, going out there and drilling and obviously coupling that up with the money raising to go public. That makes sense. And a time when a project like this is going to catch a catch a bid,
Yeah, and if anyone has any questions about the project, I'm happy to answer them and direct however as needed.
How's the materials on the website? Do we have like the maps and everything's relatively up to date on that?
Yeah, it was updated January, February this year, which there isn't going to be, we're not doing a ton of updates, ton of things we're doing. Mm-hmm. We're basically trying to not spend money so that when we do spend it, it's going to be well worth it.
You got it. Okay, so that's it. So that wraps up our Olympus stuff. Thanks for popping in, and I'm glad that everybody got a chance to see the man behind the screen.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks,
guys.
Thanks.